Hello, and welcome to Sharing Our Cultures. This is the place where you get to meet amazing individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds who are making significant contributions to the cultural, social, and economic development of Newfoundland and Labrador. Joining me today is Dr. Tony Fang, a full professor, a Stephen Jaroslavsky Chair in Cultural and Economic Transformation, the Department of Economics at Memorial University of Newfoundland, and an adjunct professor with the University of Toronto. Welcome back to Sharing Our Cultures. I have with me today Dr. Tony Fang. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. And how are you today?
It's it's great today, and it's also it's a beautiful day, and it's a nice place as well.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Well, now the government of Newfoundland and Labrador is pursuing immigration as a strategy for population growth. And what, from your research that you've conducted, what would you say are the socio-economic benefits of immigration to Newfoundland and Labrador?
First of all, yeah, that's a good question. Let me tell a little bit of my story first.
Okay, sure.
When I was here a student at MUN 20 years ago, sounds a long time ago, there were very few international students or migrants in this province. Mm-hmm. Of course, 20 years later, we have more than 3,000 international students at MUN, and that's 3,000, that's a large number. We also accepted, close to 2,000 immigrants, to this province. That sounds a lot. I mean, it is a lot. I mean, it's already 50% more than 5 years ago, but still there's room to grow. I mean, if you listen to the interview of our Premier Designate, Andrew Furry, recently, there's a lot of concern about the physical crisis of the province. Of course, in part, it's because we have shrinking population, and we have shrinking labor force, right? And it's definitely a valid concern and a worry about the province in the long term. Yes. And so, of course, if you look at the increase, that's quite substantial year over year. But looking at the immigration rate, compared with the national average, we have less than 3% immigrants in this province. Right. National average, we have 20%. Right. So there's a lot of room to grow for this province. Okay. Of course, people have a lot of concerns about immigration in this province. Some say, immigrants may take jobs away from what they have, and some may say, immigrants might drain, public, resources, right, in health and social security and so on. This is a common held myth. Right. So my research really is to dispel this kind of commonly held myths, and just looking at employment. And most immigrants coming to this province now are coming at, from the economic immigration class, and mostly employer-driven, actually. If you look at the provincial nominee program, most recently we have the Atlantic immigration pilot programs, and one of the conditions to get approval of immigration status, you need to have job offer from an employer. And that means that those jobs have been already advertising for a considerable amount of time, usually 6 weeks. If no, local workers have the qualification, or no local workers are willing to take the job on ongoing market rates, wage rates, then the immigrants would be accepted. So it's really here we're talking about immigrants who come here to fill labor skill shortages. Right, and not actually directly compete with local workers. This is a common held myth. I mean, we have, number study have shown, there's no adverse effect of immigration on the unemployment rate. Right. So this is probably one of the, common held misperception. Another is that about the resource implications, and because the immigration selection system, first of all, immigrants are considerably younger, relative to the population, local population. And also they have gone through this health screening process. Right. So that means they actually more healthier, at least in the first few years arrival. Right. That means that they're less likely to utilize our public health system. Yes. The other is that, because they are younger, on average, typically they pay income tax right away.
Right.
They only accept, receive, pension benefits, and decades later,
Yes.
okay, or they have contributed to the employment insurance system already before they can actually qualify for employment insurance benefits.
Right.
So again, studies have shown that immigrants less likely to utilize those kind of public security resources, and also because the cultural dimension. I mean, most recent immigrants coming from Asia Pacific countries or African countries, and in part because they don't know the system well. They don't know how to apply for social assistance benefits, or there's some kind of cultural biases because for example, a lot of recent immigrants are not actually comfortable implying this is so-called shame effect. So really here is that if you look at the resource implication, our study based on macroeconomic model has shown actually immigrants not only won't take jobs from our local workers or drain our public resources, and they can bring in more money. How come that be, right? The idea is exactly what I just demonstrated to you. The younger the pay income tax right away, and less likely to actually utilize public security resources. And if we actually accept additional 1,000 immigrants to this province, we actually could increase about $40 million to the government coffer, based on our simulation research, for this province.
Right. Yeah, because even the younger they are, the more likely they have to start a family.
Yes.
And of course, we know that the province has an aging population.
That's right. That's exactly the big worry of the Premier Desolate, Andrew Furry. I mean, we have shrinking population, we have aging population. Our fertility is actually lowest in the country, less than 1.35, per women. And the other is that we have oldest population, on average about 46 years old. National average is much lower, is around 40 years old. So, really we need a lot of, workers at that prime, age of labor force participation, right? That's exactly when actually the immigrants can potentially fill labor skill gaps in the province.
Yeah. And there's also the aspect of immigrants coming and they're entrepreneurs. They're starting their own businesses.
That's right.
Companies, restaurants.
Exactly. Again, the research has shown that immigrants are more likely to start up new businesses, and international students are 6 times more likely to start a business. We have at MUM, we have a very well-run actually entrepreneurship training program for international students, funded by COVA, and at a Janus Center. You probably heard about the program, which well received. So exactly the idea is that immigrants not only create job for themselves, but also create job for locals, right? Through this kind of new startup entrepreneurship programs.
Yeah. Well, that's a great
that sounds a lot.
That is a good information. What? Now, you serve on the World Bank's Expert Advisory Committee on Migration and Development. You have mentioned the new premier. What would be your advice to him around immigration policies for this province?
We have, as I said, we need to have a bold plan for immigration program and policy in the province to fill labor skill shortages, to grow the population in the province for the long-term economic and social prosperity of the province, and to have a bigger say and more influence at the national stage. And so, as I said earlier, this is, pretty dramatic increase, 50% of immigration intakes, about 1,700 by 2022. Sounds impressive, but I think we can do a lot more than that, because national average is 1% of population. And here in this province, less than 0.3%. That means that based on our calculation, we should be able to bring 5,000 immigrants, at least, right, to fix this population shrink and also fix this labor skill shortages. And we have, a lot of to do, a lot of to grow in this province.
Yes, and to increase the economy as well.
That's right, exactly. I mean, this is probably one of the most important issues. When I first actually took on this position as Stephen Jaroslawski chair, of course, he himself is a very successful refugee to this province from Germany, fleeing from the oppression of Nazis in the 1930s, and eventually become very successful entrepreneur, as investment banker, and actually become a billionaire. And so he's so gracious to actually provide more than 30 chairs, research chairs in the country. I was very lucky to be selected for this Stefan Jaroslawski Chair in Cultural Economic Transformation. When he gave me this title, he said, I have special meanings for this chair because, based on his understanding, economy is the most important issue in the province. Probably most people agree. But cultural change is most challenging. Right? It takes long time. It takes the change of the mindsets before people can openly accept, right, this large-scale migration program. And so, one of the concerns is about potential erosion of local cultures, right? When newcomers come in, people sometimes, view them with suspicion, right? Or some kind of fear even in the rural, remote areas. That is understandable. But I have a message to them is that we definitely have no evidence to show those kind of radical thinking, radical thoughts, ideas have made inroads to the province or to the country. And if anything, I think the impact of multiculturalism is actually opposite, as what the Prime Minister said. Diversity is our strength. It is. Right? Diversity have made this province a lot more interesting, a fun place to live and work. Right? So if you look at the all kind of ethnic food and restaurants and music and arts and so on, right? So this is where we feel, right? This is actually the long-term tradition of the province, right? And essentially immigrants have contributed, right, to the more dynamic, more vibrant community of Newfoundland and Labrador.
And that's very true. Now we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Dr. Fang is going to talk about the employers' perceptions of hiring newcomers and international students. Welcome back to Sharing Our Cultures as we continue our conversation with Dr. Tony Fang. Great, and I was wondering, when we were talking earlier about immigration and people being employed here, that some employers feel that newcomers or international students might not be a good fit for their workplace, and some of them feel they even have to make adjustments to the workplace to accommodate the diverse populations that are wanting to be employed in their organizations or companies or agencies. Now, what from your research does the data show are the perceptions of employers on hiring immigrants or international students?
Yeah, that's exactly the reason we conduct this survey in 2019, last year, between July and August. We actually surveyed more than 300 employers in the province. And the idea is that, we know economic integration is the most important part of the long-term integration and retention of newcomers in the province, finding a meaningful job that actually can support themselves and also their family. So in that regard, the perception of the employee hiring towards newcomers, international students is crucial. This is also crucial because the federal government recently had important policy changes, making a shift for the selection of immigrants by federal government departments, the AICC, more towards the regional government, also allowing more involvement and participation of employers, which is a very important part of the labor market, which is demand side of the labor market. And and also, as we know, the recent change in program like PMP, Provincial Nominee Program, AIPP, Land Immigration Pilot Program, does emphasize the strong role of the employers. So based on the data, what we have found is that in this province, actually, more than 43% of organizations reported labor skill shortages, either because lack of applicants or lack of necessary skills or lack of necessary experiences.
Right.
And that's where actually newcomers can actually play important role to fill such labor skill shortages. And also quite interesting from our data, more than 60% of organizations received applications from newcomers, international students.
Right.
And actually, 48% of them actually hire them. Okay. Interestingly, overwhelming majority of employers reported positive experience with immigrant and student employees. Right. Okay, the most important reasons for that positive impression, including strong work ethics, right. Very hardworking, very reliable, had very strong qualification and skills. Of course, some of them also mentioned areas for improvement, including language barriers, right. And lack of understanding of workplace culture, and also higher labor mobility. That's exactly why the stakeholders of labor market, including the government, settlement agencies, and employer themselves, should provide more support for the long-term success integration of newcomers, international students, includes to all kind of language training, job specific skill training, and bridge programs, and also cross-cultural communication and training. So this is, I think, we have learned a lot from the survey. Of course, first of all, it's quite impressed. We're quite impressed that the overall the perception of hiring attitudes towards newcomer international is quite positive, yes. And even more positive among those who already hired newcomer international students. This is the kind of lesson we have learned for this province, because it is the rural area that the employer reported most acute labor skill shortages. But on the other hand, in the rural areas, the employer have a lot of concerns, suspicions about suitability and the fit, and the cultural fit of newcomers. So that highlights the importance of cross-cultural communication, and also more transparent and comprehensive information about the purpose and the process immigration program. That's exactly what I have found, is that it is a small, medium-sized enterprise who lack of the knowledge about immigration program. Right. And that's probably not surprising. We know all the large organization employer, they typically have very strong HR department who actually understand all this process immigration program and policies. Right. So yeah, this is one of the kind of dilemma we kind of facing this province, is that we know we have not much problem for St. John's, which experienced very healthy population growth during the last two census. Right. But outside of St. John's, almost every community is losing people. Right. Yeah. And they also reported skill labor shortages, but they're most hesitant in hiring newcomers and international students. Right. So in that regard, we have a lot of work to do, from the government, federal, provincial, municipal, and also the settlement agencies, right, to put in more resources, more support to small, medium-sized enterprise in the rural, remote areas in the province. Right.
Yeah, because I think when newcomers come, they're more likely to agree to work in rural areas than maybe even the local people. So it's a place where they can actually go and be able to use their skills, their experiences, and actually learn about the cultures.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you can see, for those highly skilled newcomers, doctors, lawyers, and so on, many of them would like to start in the small community, because that's where they can easily find, a community practice their skills. right? I still remember many years ago we have a movie about how the rural communities in Newfoundland like to track and retain medical doctors in the region by throwing $5 bill along the road. The doctors heading back home, right? Just well, that's maybe some miracle, right? That would attract us to stay here, right? So, but it highlights the importance to attract, retain highly skilled professionals in those communities.
Yes, it is very important as well. So knowledge mobilization is key. How do we what would you suggest or advise, the government, the people who employ newcomers, what do they need to know to make them buy into this idea that yes, it benefits us, the socioeconomic benefits are high, we know about the good work ethics, the number of people who come here have 2 or 3 degrees, they've got a lot of years of experience, so we don't want them just to come and waste that here. How do we get that message across?
Well, first of all, we have our responsibility as researchers, as academics. We should reach out rather than sitting in a dark room writing papers, right? So, let's, exactly what I've been doing. I mean, doing this, like interviews with the media and with the local organization, border trade, right? And try to get the word across. And that's very important. The second is that the government should actually play an important role to provide more transparent, more comprehensive information about immigration programs and assistance. The third is that actually we need more collaborative efforts. I really actually advocate this kind of one-stop service center. So all stakeholders, employers, immigrants, settlement agencies, they could have one place to get all information available about immigration program, about labor market information, the supply and demand, and availability of the jobs, and the regions that experience most severe labor skill shortages, right? And so last night I think we need very much a concerted efforts to mobilize the knowledge, right, to share the information, to provide mutual support, so that the immigrants feel comfortable in settling in those communities. Employers feel the benefits and contribution made by the employees, and the government have seen their tax revenue increases, right, in the coffer, right? So they will be more supportive as well. So really, I think we need to come up this idea where this is really kind of win-win situation for all stakeholders. We're all in this all together, right? So that's the main message I would like to share with the audience here.
Yes, yeah. Okay, and we will most definitely take that to heart and see actually how we all can work together, particularly in helping not only newcomers to come and work here, but also stay and raise their families here as well.
That's right. Yeah. And that's the, I think, one of the important policy implications for our study is actually we need to provide strong support to both employers and also newcomer international students. And all kinds of support, including spousal employment, accessible, health care, more, easy access, public transportation, right? And so on and so forth, so that, when it arrived, right, they see, everything is already set up for both the newcomers, but also for employers. That's the reason why the most recent program, I think, is a policy innovation in this country, is AIPP. And, the idea is that, when you sign up, employers sign up this program, you actually have the obligation to develop a settlement integration program for the employees, but also the family members. I think this is reason why retention rate is improving over time for Atlantic provinces. And not only attraction, of course, we attract a lot more, in part because we actually exceeded the targets of the provincial government. It's because AIPP, right? It's one program that the federal government would like to extend for a long period of time. And also, they would like to actually replicate the program outside Atlantic Canada because it's success in recruitment and retention.
Right. Well, thank you so much. You've given us so much information.
I have a lot more to say, but I think we are running out of time.
Yeah, but we really do appreciate it. And
thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for coming, taking time from your busy schedule to be with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today as we had conversations with Dr. Tony Fang. Join us next time on Sharing Our Cultures as we share the contributions of individuals from around the world that have come to call this place home.